So Riot Games has finally put out their anime, and honestly, the first act was amazing. It's been almost 2 years since Riot announced that they were making a slew of games, but the thing I was most excited for was actually the anime. So the lore for League of Legends has always been really good, but reading it is a different experience than watching it, and watching it did not disappoint at all. After I saw the first sneak peek back in October of 2019, I wasn't too excited for the art style, but after watching the first act, I realized that it flows really well. I think Riot could have really gave me anything and I still would have been happy. The storytelling is normally pretty good, so I imagine it would be at least a half decent show. But then again, their champion design has been questionable at some times, even though they do have 200 years of experience. But I imagine the lore team was working on this, and it turned out pretty good. At least that's what the ratings say. Everyone seems to be enjoying the story so far, which I love to see, because if everyone enjoys it, that means Season 2, baby. It was also a nice change to see the League of Legends community not be toxic for once. But honestly, I'll wait to the end of the show to come up with a theory because they could do anything with this show, and not only that, they could follow any other champ, so super excited to see the future. But enough about the future, let's talk about the first act of the show, aka the first 3 episodes of Arcane. And I do want to put a spoiler warning up because I am going to talk about the show and some of the cool things they did. Now, first things first, there's a lot to learn about the League of Legends lore, and they didn't explain any of it, which actually turned out to be a good thing because I didn't want to watch a show where they just sit there and explain everything. They kind of just dropped us in and let us watch the action. And action there was. You already got to see Vi use her W and E combo. I don't think she scaled her Q or her ultimate, and Jynx was AFK for some reason, so that was kind of interesting part. And not only the fight scenes pretty cool, I thought the story was also pretty well presented. I'm not too familiar with the Jynx and Vi lore, but even then I could understand what was going on all the time. I think people that haven't played League of Legends before can still enjoy the show, but people that have played League, it's on a different level when watching it. And that leads me to one of the coolest parts about the show, and that's name dropping. Not only that, it's an earlier version of most of these characters, so sometimes they're hard to recognize. And I think the subtle name drops are one of the coolest parts about the show. A name is only a name really to people that know, and if you know, you know. And I think 2 ways they did that were really cool. Most of the time they were subtle where it was like, oh, Jayce, Caitlyn, Ekko, but then they were like, oh, I'm Viktor. And I was just like, oh, dude, it makes so much sense. It's Viktor, which is a completely different experience that I've ever experienced before. It's like I know these characters, but I don't know them. It's very weird. And this is how I imagine most League of Legends summoners feel, because I know the end of the story, and I know some parts in the middle if you read the lore, but I don't really know the story, and it's just wide open for anything. It's like having a puzzle, and you see the picture of the puzzle on the box, so you know what it needs to be, but sometimes you're missing pieces, sometimes they add pieces while you're building the puzzle, and it becomes this complicated mess. And that's Arcane. So even if they didn't say the name, you still get the theory craft of which character is which. Like you got to see a potential Twitch who got fed and one-shotted a Yumi. Assuming that you played League of Legends before, because I assume most of the people watching Arcane have played it, but not everyone. So I played League of Legends since Season 3. Over the years, I've read a decent amount of the lore, looked up a decent amount of the stories. So my experience is a little bit different than someone who knows nothing about League of Legends. I'm not too familiar with the Vi and Jynx lore. However, that being said, Ekko is my favorite champ, and seeing Zaun and Piltover come to life on screen is an amazing experience. But even if you don't know anything about League of Legends, I think Zaun and Piltover are built really cool where you can still appreciate the world for what it is. And there's a lot of tension between both of the cities, and you can really see that on screen with how it always plays out. There's always tension in the air and something's about to go wrong. And I also think they do a good job of adding comedy into the show as well, so you're not on the edge of your seat the entire time, and it's a little bit of a de-stressor. And most importantly, I think we have to talk about the 3rd episode of Act 1. If you haven't seen the 3rd episode, I don't think you've really watched Arcane. I think the first 2 episodes kind of built up the story and showed different perspectives from each character. So when it comes to the 3rd episode, it takes the perspectives of what we've seen from episode 1 and 2 and then puts it all together and makes the series what it is. I don't know that for sure because the series could really go any way it wants to, but it definitely laid a good foundation for what it is going to be. And all we want to see is really an older Jayce, an older Vi, an older Jynx, all these characters that we know. So those were just some initial thoughts on the show. I don't really like to judge a story until it's over, but the first 3 episodes were definitely very promising, and I'm super excited to see the rest of the show. So Act 1 of Arcane easily gets a 9 out of 10. I'm sure the series can easily be a 10 out of 10 depending on how the ending is, so we'll have to see. But what did you guys think of the show? I think for the most part people thought it was pretty good, but I'm interested to hear about people that have never played League before, how good they thought the show was.